Hey guys, I'm doing the wonky turnaround camera. I can't seem to get this angle right so that I can use this one without it just being like this profile side of my face thing. To face forward, I'd have to I'm facing the wall right now to make it look like I'm facing the camera. And anyway, but you need to see my Arkansas shirt. My family and I are about to go on a vacation home for the Thanksgiving holiday. And for those of you outside of the United States, you probably don't have any particular attachment to Thanksgiving, but I do. It's my favorite holiday of the year. I even prefer it to Christmas. And I'm so excited about going home. Also, for those outside of the United States, I don't think there's nearly the same attachment to your local, state or province or what have you. Like, you go to the UK, people are not all about the county, They are in Ireland, though. That's one of the things I loved about the Irish when we lived in Dublin, is that they totally get it. It's like, I'm not just American, I'm Arkansan too, darn it. So anyway, Arkansas shirt. It's going to be backward in the rest of the video. But oh well, I think you can cope, right? You can stay with me on that. This video is going to be about menstrual cups, and it's going to be a relatively long one. But in this case, I'm not making an apology for that, because I think one of the problems with people who are trying to get into menstrual cups is that they get told, yes, go out and buy this is a menstrual cup, by the way. Go out, buy a menstrual cup. It's going to be great. And then they leave you with that. And I think if you're armed with a little bit more information, that your first experiences with menstrual cups can be problem-free. And so that's what I'm going to try to do. I'll try to break it up into little topical sections so that you don't feel like you have to watch the whole thing at once. But this is going to be my, Amy Nix Menstrual Cup 101 primer. So let's get into it. So menstrual cups. I did a video about why tampons are bad for you, and I then mentioned in that video that I use a menstrual cup, and this is my first menstrual cup, and just to make you feel better, they're not stiff, they're squishy. First time I saw one of these, I was like, oh, you what? No, they're very squishy, and you don't stick it up there like that. So anyway, menstrual cups. Menstrual cups are an alternative to tampons. They are worn internally, and they collect rather than absorb menstrual flow. And the reason that this is a big deal, the reason this is something you should consider, is because, number one, all of those problems that I talked about in the Why Tampons Are Bad For You video, none of those apply to this. Menstrual cups are made of TPE, which is, I don't even remember what that stands for. I looked it up at one point, but it is even less allergenic than silicone. This is medical grade silicone. They're made of materials that surgeons would actually put inside the human body in replacement bits and that sort of thing. I mean, so it's not going to hurt you. There's nothing in this that can hurt you. And absorption tends to dry out and change chemical balance inside the vaginal canal. It tends to cause all kinds of problem, even if you're using, organics. They're not as comfortable. There's a lot of different theories about bacteria when you have a tampon as opposed to a collection device. We don't know for sure, but tampons are problematic even if you're not using the commercial brands that have the chemicals in them that I talked about. A menstrual cup is just a safe way to go. In addition to which, the benefits of using a menstrual cup are, if you're a person with a heavy flow and you have to change out a tampon every hour and a half to 2 hours, you can wear this for 4 or 5 before you have to change it out. If you're a person who has a normal flow, you won't have to change this out more than once every 12 hours or so, for real. It gives a great deal of freedom, and it can change a lot about the way that you deal with your menstrual cycle. It can literally help you forget that you have a menstrual cycle going on. They're amazing. They are wonderful. And if you go into YouTube and you type in the search box, menstrual cup or what is a menstrual cup, you're going to get a very long list of videos of people telling you how wonderful they are and how great they are and how you should switch. But the truth is, there's more to it than just buying a menstrual cup. There are questions that you need to know the answers to. There are things that you should know about what your options are in the menstrual cup array of products. And so this video, it's going to get lengthy. But you know what, if you just want a short basic video, there's already those out there. This one is going to get into it. And my hope for this video is to give you all of the information you need to pick the right menstrual cup for you, and to understand how your body's going on, and to help you go into this so that you don't have any, oh my God, what have I gotten into moments if you decide to try one of these. And I highly recommend that you do. I will never use anything else. This is revolutionary, man. You got to try these. In this section, I'm going to talk to you about your cervix, because getting familiar with your cervix is really important if you want to be able to use a menstrual cup comfortably, and if you want to be able to choose the one that's right for you from the get-go. Because if you choose the wrong menstrual cup, if you choose one that's ill-fitting for your body, which has more to do with cervix height and cervix position than anything else, you're just not going to have a good time unless you figure it out. You can have some pain, you can have leaking, you can have all kinds of problems if you choose the wrong cup for your cervix. So, in introduction to your cervix, there are quite a few women who don't really know what a cervix is. So what I want you to do is I want you to think of your vaginal canal as a tube, and the vaginal opening is the door, and the cervix is the door at the end of the hall. Okay, the cervix is the opening which remains closed almost all the time, except during certain parts of the menstrual cycle, to facilitate reproduction and fertility. The cervix is actually, this is a better depiction of the cervix. The cervix is like a donut, if you will, and only sometimes does the donut hole open. Okay? And the way that you can find your cervix, well, it's the doorway between the vaginal canal and your uterus. So the cervix sits between your vaginal canal, and on the other side is your uterus. Okay? And it stays closed most of the time. I had never done a self-examination. Now, for a lot of women who are trying to conceive, part of their routine is to do manual cervix checks, because the texture of your cervix and the position of your cervix and the fluids that come around the cervix, those are different during different parts of your menstrual cycle, which is something I didn't know that before I started using menstrual cups. I did not know that. And that was a little embarrassing. And honestly, women, especially, women in developed countries, we need to know more about this stuff. There's no excuse for not knowing. If you've lived in a place where your biggest concern is fresh water and what you're going to eat to survive, then I can understand a lack of education on these things. But in developed countries, we have educational systems just universally. We all have an opportunity to learn to read and write and how basic things in the world work. And I don't think it gets any more basic than how does my body work? So you should know these things. So for those who've become familiar with self-checks for the cervix, this is going to be cake for you. Using a menstrual cup is going to be very easy for you. It's going to be a very natural process for you. For those of us who haven't, it's not. It can be a little awkward. So the first step is to check your cervix. You need to know how high your cervix is. And by high, we mean how long, how much space in the vaginal canal before you hit the cervix is there? How much is there? And conventional wisdom on this is you wash your hands, and then you sit in a comfortable position. It's usually going to be, if you're familiar with tampon use, it'll be the position that's been comfortable for you to use when you're inserting a tampon. And then using your fingers, you're going to take your index finger or your middle finger, because those are the longest ones. And as you can see, I have really short hands. Lots of women have really long hands. So again, this is not science here. This is just the conventional wisdom. This is how you do a basic introductory check, okay? If you put a finger, you insert your finger into your vaginal canal, and if you cannot find your cervix, if you can't feel a cervix, all you feel is the normal soft tissue on the walls, that means your cervix is very high. So you put your finger in all the way up to here and you can't feel your cervix, then you have a high cervix, okay? Now, if you put your finger in and you can get it up to about the second knuckle, okay, that's a regular, normal kind of cervix. If you can't get your finger in that far before hitting your cervix, like you only go in this far, and boom, there it is, then you have a low cervix, okay? So low, regular, and high. That's kind of what you want to think about. And you can ascertain this by using your finger. However, one thing that's really important to know is that your cervix will change positions at different times during your menstrual cycle. For example, during ovulation, the cervix tends to sit much higher than it does during the other parts of your cycle. So if you're around day 14, 15 of your cycle when you're ovulating and you do your manual cervix check then, you may think, oh wow, I've got a really tall cervix. That sucker's really up there. But then later, when you're actually menstruating, your cervix can be as much as an inch to an inch and a half lower. I know this from personal experience because that's the problem that I had, is that I have always been told by doctors who commented, and you know, when you go in for a pap smear or whatever, you're going in for your routine health examinations. You're typically not on your cycle when you go in for that. So your cervix is in a completely different position than it would be during the menstrual cycle. And so I had always been told that I had a very, very high and tilted cervix, which was, it's always in an awkward position for the gynecologist to do his or her work. So I went into buying my first menstrual cup with that assumption because I had not manually checked it myself. So what I'd really like for you to do, because this would be the most beneficial, is on one of the first or last days of your cycle, when it's not going to freak you out too badly because it's very minimal, I want you to check your cervix during the menstrual cycle, because that's going to give you the best read on where your cervix sits for menstrual cup use. Okay? So sit with that. Read articles about it if it makes you feel better. But really, that's all you need to know. Wash your hands, insert a finger, and feel around for your cervix. Now, how will you know that you're touching your cervix? Your cervix, and this is, a lot of people say this, they say that it feels like the tip of your nose, that it's firm like the tip of your nose. I don't find that to be true. Mine is firmer than that. Basically what it's going to feel like is, and it's not big, you know, they show you the pictures of it, and you think it's going to be something, I don't know, I don't have anything on my desk. You think it's going to be this big around. You know, you have this concept that your cervix is going to be this sized. It's not. It's smaller than that. Honestly, I think mine's like the size of a dime or the size of a nickel, which is American coinage. No bigger than a €1 coin for those of you in the Eurozone. I'm not really familiar with Canadian coinage, I'm sorry. So I don't know what to say for that. But I mean, we're talking about maybe an inch in diameter, okay? It's not big, it's small. And to me, it feels kind of like a squishy marble. It's harder and firmer, you know, it's definitely different than the surrounding tissue. And if you feel it with your fingertip, you'll be able to feel that there is a definite circular shape to it. So basically what I want you to do is wash your hands, clip your fingernails for the love of all that is holy, okay? This is not a spelunking expedition with ice picks. You're gonna go up there and very gently just feel around and get familiar with what's up there, and then measure the height when you finally find your cervix. And once you know your cervix height and the position of your cervix, then you can move on to the next step. What we're going to get into now is answering the question, basically, how does this work? You know, how does using a menstrual cup work? I'm going to demonstrate with this one. This is a Diva cup. And for those of you in North America, if you've ever heard of a menstrual cup before, this is probably the one that you've heard of. This one's pretty widely available throughout North America. It's the Diva cup. It's manufactured in Canada, and I'll get more into different types of cups in that section. But that's the one I'm going to demonstrate for you just now. I'm trying to get close because I'm going to have to show you things in the camera. All right, so with a menstrual cup, almost every menstrual cup, you will see on them that they have these little tiny holes up near the rim of the cup, if you can see it there. There's one. There's one. These are air release holes. They make it so that when there's a suction, there can be a suction release. This is how you get a seal that doesn't leak. So that's the basic parts of that, and then there's usually a rim around it, but shapes are all different. And then the other thing is that you'll have on the end of the cups, you'll have these grip rings here that help you grasp the cup when you're removing it. And on almost every cup, this is a different one I'm going to show you. every cup you get almost has a stem on it like this that also has grip rings that you pull. Now the Diva cup comes with a stem on it. I cut it off. A lot of women cut the stems off of their cups, but they can be handy for people who have a higher cervix, because obviously if you have a higher cervix, this is going to sit further up inside your body than it would in mine, for example, because I have a low cervix. And the stem is to help you retrieve it upon removal. So those are basically the different parts of the cup. Now for insertion with a cup, obviously, like I said, these are squishy. You don't put it in there open like this. And there are several different ways you can fold. They're called folds. And I'll just show you the basic ones. This is the one that most people call a hot dog in a bun, or a C fold, because it can look like a C or a U or whatever. But that's the C fold, where you do it like this. This one is not my favorite. And then, of course, the way that would work is you folded it like this, and then you insert it this way, and then once it's inside, it pops open like that. The one that I use is called the punch down fold, and this is one of the more popular ones too, which is you put a finger here and then you pull it back, which forces it into this little kind of an inclined plane shape for insertion. And again, you insert it and then it pops open like this. Okay, and then there's some other ones. You can watch videos, or you can read PDFs or what have you about different ways that you can fold the cup. But those are the two standard ones, basically. So the idea is you fold the cup, however you're going to fold it, and then you insert it. And then once it gets in there, it's going to open up. Now I'm squeezing this one really hard so that you can see this is not fully open. And when you have a problem like this, which comes with some of the softer ones or whatever, you can turn it, which can force it to pop open like this. Or some people will push it up, pull it down a little bit, and that will help it pop open. But once it's popped completely open like this, you have a seal. And the idea is that your cervix will sit, pretend my knuckle is a cervix, that your cervix will be right about here, and some people even have it sit down in the cup, and I cannot imagine that that's comfortable. But ideally, this will sit just, like below your cervix, like this, and then it will collect. Okay, so what about removal? When it's time to remove the cup, you will reach up inside and grasp the stem, or probably this part. And what you do is you just lightly squeeze on the bottom, which breaks the air seal, because it will force air through these little air release holes when you go like this. And then you gently pull it out like this. And then you just dump this into the toilet, and then it's ready for reinsertion. So now we're gonna get to the question, the big elephant in the room that every woman, as soon as they see one of these, they're like, okay, yeah, but isn't that like super messy? And this is the one that I think too few of the videos about menstrual cups get into, because yeah, it kind of is. And especially the first couple of times that you use a menstrual cup, until you figure out what you're doing. I mean, because honestly, no, I don't have mess issues with a cup at all anymore. In fact, I used to have more issues with that with tampons than I currently do with menstrual cups, and it's because I've gotten used to this thing. And I know what I'm doing. I know how to fold it, I know how to put it up there, I know how to take it out, and I know how to clean it between without having to have any mess. So I actually used to have more issues with tampons than I do with this, as far as having to wash my hands afterwards, if you get my drift. So, but the first cycle, and sometimes for some ladies, the first couple of cycles, while you're figuring out how this works for you, it can be a little messy. There is a learning curve with this. But if you remember back to using tampons, there was a learning curve with tampons as well. So any kind of internal protection you're going to use, it's going to take some practice to figure out how your body's shaped and how this device best fits in your body. But it's pretty simple once you get the hang of it, okay? You insert it, that's relatively problem-free once you know how to get it up there and what the position is correct and how to get it open best for you. Removal, depending on how high your cervix is or how high up inside your body the cup sits in its appropriate open position, those are variables that will change how much mess you're dealing with. But it's pretty easy. In fact, generally, if I'm in a public restroom, for example, now if I'm at home, I just rinse it out in the sink and then reinsert it. But if you're in a public place, like a work restroom or at school or what have you, or you're just out shopping and you need to change it out, which, by the way, doesn't happen as often with this as it does with a tampon. Most of us, you could go to work, put it in the morning. You don't have to change it until you get home. You have to keep that in mind. This is not something you're going to be doing multiple times a day. Okay? If you have a super heavy flow, you may have to do it a couple of times a day, but we're still not you're not going to be in the ladies' room in your office every 2 hours messing with this. That's not how this works. You're going to have 4 to 6 hours even if you have a heavy flow with a cup. And if you have a regular flow, I'm absolutely serious. You may never, ever, ever have to change this in public, because you'll put it in the morning and you'll take it out when you get home in the evening. And that's the truth. But let's go on the assumption that you have a heavier flow, or that you've gotten caught out somewhere and you need to change it in public. You just wipe it down with toilet paper, or you do what I do, and that is I have a little travel packet of wipes, just regular wet wipes that I carry in my handbag, and you take the cup out, you wipe this off, reinsert it, wipe your fingers off, boom, that's it. It's really that simple. It's not, I think a lot of people have this impression that we're talking about volume, like you're gonna have, murder scene literally on your hands, and that's, even the messiest situation you get into, that's not what we're dealing with here. We're talking about, you can take care of it with a wet wipe. That's all you need. But at home, obviously, what you're going to do is at least once a day, because a lot of us, we get used to this. I mean, it's just take it out, empty it, boom, put it back in. And it's really, that's all there is to it. There's nothing else going on there once you get it down to a routine. However, you do want to, once a day, take it to your bathroom sink, wash it. I just use hand soap. Some people get real fastidious about using an all-natural kind of cleanser. I mean, that's entirely your prerogative. But some kind of cleaner, cleanser, soap, detergent, whatever it is that you pick to use to clean your cup. Once a day, you're going to want to put some in there. Make sure you get it all rolled around. Rinse it really well with water. And then you can reinsert it. At least once a day, you're going to clean it like that. And then the beauty of these is that, unlike tampons, they're much, much cleaner, because between cycles you sterilize them. Just like with baby nipples, or, I'm trying to think what else, breast pump parts that you used to have to deal with. Some people have like respirator material that they sleep with at night, for sleep apnea and whatnot. You put this in a pan of boiling water, leave it there for 5 minutes, and it's completely sterilized. And then almost every cup that I know of comes with a pouch like this. You can launder this regularly if you feel that it needs to be laundered. And then you just put the cup in here, and then it'll stay in, your nightstand or your drawer or wherever you keep them when you're not on a cycle, and they stay clean that way. Because it's different than what we're used to, it can seem like it's complicated, or that there's a lot involved. But in reality, there's not. It's just really not that big of a deal. And so it's really simple. Fold it, insert, it pops open. And then when you pull it out, you grip the base to break the air seal. You pull it out like that. And then you dump it in the toilet, and then you can wipe it off with toilet paper or a wipe and reinsert it. You wash it once a day, and then you sterilize it between cycles. That's how it works. The final thing we're going to cover is how you pick which cup would work best for you. And that was the whole point of making this video, was to try and get to this part where you've checked your cervix height, you understand how using it and cleaning it is going to work, and how you're going to handle using one. And now we get to pick which one's going to be best for you. There are 2 considerations in choosing which cup. And the first is which size cup you're going to get. Almost every menstrual cup company offers 2 sizes. There are exceptions, and I'll talk about that. But most cup companies offer 2 sizes. They'll have a size 1 and a size 2, or a size A and a size B. And one is slightly smaller than the other. And the companies will advertise this as being if you are over 30 or if you have delivered a child vaginally, then you should get the bigger size. And whereas if you are under 30 or if you have never delivered a child vaginally, you should get the smaller size. Those of us who've been using cups for a while have pretty much a consensus between us that that's not really the best determining factor for which size you need. If you have a heavy flow, get the bigger size. If you have a lighter flow, get the smaller size. If you are an adult woman. If you are an adolescent, a preteen or a young teen, you may want to consider getting the smaller size. Also, if you have experienced a great deal of pain with tampon insertion, or if you are a person who has never had penetrative sex, you might want to consider starting with the smaller sizes. However, that's not even necessarily true. There are quite a few teenagers out there who are using the larger size cups to accommodate a heavier flow, and they do that problem free. That to get into that any more detail would be a completely different video. But just know that the volume of your flow is the number one determining factor about which size of the cup you should get. So let's say you decide you want a Diva cup, which size should you get? If you have a light flow, get the little one. If you have a heavy flow, get the bigger one. That's kind of the consensus of the cup using community. There are exceptions because everybody's body is different, but that is much more of a factor than whether you've had a baby or not for size. Okay, so now when you're choosing which kind of cup you want to get, now I have 3, okay? The Diva cup was the first one I bought because in North America it is the most common and readily available. You can get them in department stores, you can get them in higher end grocery stores in the pharmacy section. I bought this one at a Harris Teeter, which is a grocery chain over here on the eastern side of the country. You know, they're very easy to come by in Canada and the United States, and that's why a lot of us start with them. However, the Diva cup is one of the longest from rim to stem of any of the cups on the market. And because I have a low cervix during my cycle, this cup is just too long for me. And so I can use it, but it's not terribly comfortable for me. So I have started looking for a different cup. This one that I got is a Maluna. Maluna is a German company, and they're the ones that use the TPE, because in Germany, their default medical material is not silicone, it's TPE. Now, neither of these materials has latex. TPE, if you read about it, it is a derivative of rubber, but it doesn't have latex in it, so you don't have to worry about that. This is actually less allergenic than silicone, according to some of the stuff I read. So TPE is a perfectly safe material. You can boil it just like silicone. It's perfectly sterilizable, etc. Anyway, the Maluna cup comes in a very wide range of lengths and capacities. So this one I chose because it's shorter than the Diva cup, you can see. And so I'm thinking this one might help me out and be a better choice. So length is the one that you're going to choose for cervix height. So if you have high cervix, this is the Lily cup from Intimina, which is a Spanish company. And it, like the Diva, is very long. Now I've clipped the stem off of my Diva, but these two cup size wise, the cups on them are roughly equivalent in height. So these are both high cervix cups, and this is a normal to low cervix cup. So height is what you're looking for that. And then the final consideration is how squishy do you want the cup to be? The Diva cup is relatively pliable, soft, as compared to the Maluna. If I put them up, you can see the Maluna is a little bit stiffer. It has more resistance to it. It's not as squishy as the Diva cup. And where the resistance of the silicone comes into play is, remember I showed you when you insert it, as soon as you get it past the pubic bone, it's going to pop open, okay? How easily a cup pops open, the basic thing to think about is the firmer the cup, the easier it will open. Now, so that's very good. A firm cup is a good cup because it makes it easy to pop open. However, if you have a sensitive urethra, if you have a sensitive bladder, or if you have places internally that are very sensitive or experience pain, then you might want to get a softer cup. And that, unfortunately, is something that will be trial and error for you unless you just happen to know ahead of time that you have a sensitive urethra or a sensitive bladder. You got to remember, this is going to be sitting inside your body, and if the rim is sitting right behind your bladder or your urethra, that might cause a problem for you. So that's something to keep in mind. If you know that about yourself ahead of time, get a softer cup. If that's not an issue for you, go with a firmer cup because they open a little bit easier. The firmness also, as a factor, is the strength of your pelvic floor muscles. If you are an athlete, if you're a younger woman who dances, or like you're some kind of a runner, or someone who has a really strong pelvic floor, your muscles may squeeze a soft cup too hard and you'd end up getting leaks just in their natural state of you walking around sitting. If your pelvic floor is very strong, that may give a softer cup this kind of thing, and so then you would want to go for a firmer cup. Again, that's going to end up being a little bit trial and error, but just go for a regular firmness cup unless you just know that you have this issue, and then in which case I would do a little research and make sure that you're getting a firmer silicone cup if you are an athletic type, or if you just happen to have really strong pelvic floor muscles. So the firmness and the length, and make sure that you buy a good brand name, and I will list those down below. I think that's pretty much it. So I'm going to pause the video here, and then in the conclusion section, I will include anything I think I left out. Okay, so in conclusion, I think that pretty much covers it. If there are any questions or any specific concerns that you had that I didn't address in the previous half hour, please leave a comment below, and I will do my very best to answer it or direct you to someone who is better qualified to answer it than I am if I don't know the answer. The one thing I want to leave you with, though, is that when you purchase a menstrual cup, there are a lot of knockoffs out there that are not from reputable companies, and I would not advise that you go after that. The reputable companies are putting out a product that's made of quality materials, and if you buy some knockoff from, made in China or some other place where they don't have regulations like we do in Europe and North America on these things, I would strongly advise that you not do that. Stick with something that you can count on, because this is, the reason you're switching from tampons is because they pose health risks. And so let's not go to a menstrual cup that could potentially pose health risks, okay? So get one that's made by someone reputable. Now I'm going to put the brand names and the websites for the ones that I am aware of. There are other ones out there, but the major ones that you can get, and these are worldwide. They're not all, exclusive to North America or anything by any stretch of the imagination. These are the ones that have a good reputation. So you can feel safe and confident ordering from any of these people that I'm going to list in the description. Be careful, because there are people who put them up as third-party sellers on Amazon and eBay and that sort of thing, and I would just caution you, definitely don't start with something like that. If the cup is less than $20 US, it's probably a knockoff, and I would steer you away from it. The higher quality cups generally cost between 30 and 40 American dollars. I think there are some in the high 20s that are still pretty good. But price is generally an indicator. If it's a $15 cup, it's probably not made with medical grade silicone. They've probably put some other kind of plastic in there, and I would not want you to put that in your body. So keep that in mind. And I think that's it. So if there's anything else that you wanted to know, leave a comment, and I promise I will get to it. Thanks very much. We're going to go on vacation, so there probably won't be another video for a week. But when I get back, I'll have more for you. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.